Antonello, you are a software engineer, you are a
Yep.
technical writer,
Yep.
but you are also a technology bishop, right? It says
Yeah,
on your
that's
website.
yeah, that's like the meme that I created to describe myself, because I know there are so many people in the IT community that are selling themselves as, I don't know, SEO, as like very important persons. So I decided to create the technology bishop.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So today I thought the main topic could be like how can we use writing as a tool to improve in our target language, or
Okay.
in my case and in your case, English,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
as a matter of fact you used it to improve your skills.
Yeah.
But first, let me ask you something. Is this a method which could be used by anyone, or do you have to be like a master? Because in
I
your
mean,
case, you were under the top 20 students at the
yeah.
university in Italy, I think.
Yeah,
So,
but
so
that's pretty interesting because yeah, well, I've always been very good at school, but I've always struggled at languages. So actually, I've always had problems with my English. So I think you don't have to be like top 20 student to apply this method. But actually, it's not even a method. It's like an idea. It's a procedure that you can follow to improve your writing, because I think that most people are like learning through listening or through, I don't know, seeing YouTube videos or listening to podcasts. But when it comes to producing, to talking and to writing, it's a bit different, you know. For example, I struggle at speaking because, yeah, it's not that easy. It takes time to get comfortable in a language. But when it comes to writing, I think that, yeah, I mean, you can go for it and whatever.
it is fascinating to me because if I remember correctly, you are rather an introvert because you said it in
Yeah.
one of your interviews. And nevertheless, you took the courage to give interviews in English. And yeah, as you said before, also the writing. And it seems to me that it's not something typical that comes by an introvert, maybe.
Yeah, actually, I've always been very introvert and I still consider myself an introvert. But at the same time, through language learning, I had the opportunity to change, because you're forced to interact with new people, you're forced to embrace new cultures. So, in a way, I was forced to leave my world and to experience something different. And when I started writing, I was writing about myself, thinking that no one would ever read that, you know. I was basically journaling, and I always thought, yeah, no one is going to read this text. But yeah, it was not the case, and I started to receive feedback about people, and they were telling me, yeah, I like your stories, yeah, I like your daily notes. Why don't you start a blog? And that's when I started to think, well, maybe if they are telling me so, I should try it, you know. And that's also why at the beginning I wasn't confident about my writing, but with time you start to become more confident and more relaxed. You understand that at the end of the day you don't have to be perfect. The goal is to make yourself understood, and it's not that difficult, especially if you have like a B1 level or B1 plus level.
What exactly motivated you to use writing to improve your English? Were there
That
any idols or something that inspired you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because English was the first time that I was learning a language and I didn't know how to do it. I had to find a procedure, and I thought that as an engineer, I thought that our good procedure might be, I don't know, write 10 words every day, read 10 words every day, like following a very strict schedule. And so, considering that learning a language is about improving your writing, your listening, and blah blah blah, we all know that. So, I decided, yeah, I'm going to write, even though I didn't like writing. Also, Actually, I didn't like it at all. I felt like it was a chore. I had to do it. But with time, everything changed, and changed when italki, which was the platform I was using at the time, was shut down. And after a couple of months, I was missing my daily writing routine. I was missing writing about my life. And so I started to think, well, maybe writing is not a chore, but is a passion, you know?
Yeah, and how exactly did it help you? I mean, did you receive a lot of feedback, or
Yeah.
was it just one-sided when you wrote those articles?
Well, at the beginning it was one-sided, but the more you write, the more you are consistent, the more you start receiving feedback. And at some point, I noticed that basically everyone was telling me, your sentences are too long. Because I was writing in Italian and then converting Italian to English. Italian is my native language. So, and in Italian, we tend to talk a lot. We tend to write very long sentences. But, yeah. But in English, if you follow that style, it doesn't work. You have to write straight to the point. And for me, it was like, no, this is not what writing is about, you know? I've always thought the writing was about like writing very long sentences and describing everything possible. But when I started also reading a lot of books in English, I started to realize that I was wrong, that writing in Italian is very different from writing in English. And I had to learn how to write in English, which is not related to word choice or to like, yeah, of course it's related to that, but it's also related to style, to find a way to convey the message naturally in that language, you know? Because if you're an English reader, you're used to reading things that are very different compared to Italian, to that style, to Roman languages. So yeah, it took me a lot of time actually to learn what I had to do. But when people were telling me like a lot of times your sentences are too long, or you need to avoid commas, or you need to blah blah blah, you start to really learn.
And it all came from the italki users.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you tried to put it into practice, and I guess that you also read a lot to
Yeah.
to compare how you could like imitate maybe the writing of others. Can we say that?
Yeah, because if you write, of course, you're writing, you're receiving feedback, but at the end of the day, if you want to improve your writing, you also have to read a lot. And I was reading a lot of New York Times bestsellers, which are very, let's say, international. Their style, their writing style is very international. You don't have to be a C2 to understand everything. And I like that. And they're pretty simple, they're pretty straight to the point. And so I decided, well, maybe I can try that, I can apply that. And you start to see words, expressions, and constructions that maybe you're not used to adopt. But in that case,
Yeah.
you're reading a sentence and you say, wow, this is a very well written sentence. So the more you read it, that sentence, the more you are likely to use it in the future, I think.
So is it a passive thing, or did you had like a notebook in which you consciously wrote down stuff like this?
I mean, I think it's like 80-20. It's 80 passive, but 20% you also have to be active. You have to, I don't know, to write down sentences or to read for guidelines, writing guidelines. I still remember that at some point I was finding ways to improve my writing in English, and I came across a sentence which said, in English, the perfect sentence is less than 10 words length. And that changed everything for me. In 10 words, you had to convey a concept, an entire concept. And maybe this is common, I don't know, in German, I don't know, I have no idea. But in Italian, 10 words are useless.
And then you trained this, right? You just continued with like an article a day, blog
Yeah, I
post a
was
day.
writing. Yeah, I was writing a note a day, around 100 words, sometimes less, sometimes more. But you know, I was trying also to experiment. So sometimes I was trying to put myself out of comfort zone to see what happened. I was like, yeah, let's try to write something in a style which is not my style, but let's see what
Hmm.
happens. And I was playing with my writing, and at some point you started to understand which is your style in English, which is different from your native language, and you start to see what you have to do to follow that style.
I see. And what about the topics? Whatever came to mind, you decided to write about?
Yeah, at the beginning it was pretty simple because I had never written much basically, so it was pretty simple to come up with the ideas. But after like 10 days, 20 days, 100 days, I mean, it's a bit different. Every day you have to find an idea. So basically, I started journaling my journey in English. I was writing about my life, about what I was doing, what I was learning, what I was seeing as TV shows. I mean, and at some point it was boring because writing about your life, it's interesting if something important happens. Otherwise, it may feel a bit boring, a bit dull. So I decided to start writing about more philosophical stuff, like experiment. I read a book and I decided, okay, I'm going to write a sort of very short review or like top ideas, like read in the book. And I was trying to create a conversation in the comments, which never happens actually, but whatever.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because today you are a technical writer,
Yeah,
so you have really written a lot of different stuff, which is
yeah,
so completely different from each other. And yeah, it's like discovering new horizons.
yeah. Yeah, at the beginning I was very strict. I'm going to write only technical stuff, like very technical stuff. Then with time companies started to tell me like, yeah, would you like to write this? It's more marketing stuff, but whatever. We like the way you write. So, okay, I'm going to try. And so I started writing also technical stuff and then less technical articles. Like they are still technical, but not that technical. And right now I'm writing about more or less everything in the IT world. So from marketing to technical stuff. I mean, 80% of my articles are very technical, but yeah, there are also some articles where companies paid me to write basically about like I don't know artificial intelligence as a way to improve your I don't know productivity, which is not. I mean, of course, yeah, it's related to technology, but it's not that technical, you know?
This is a very good word, artificial intelligence,
Yeah,
because I know that in an interview you talked about ChatGPT. I think
yeah.
it was even in Italian when I listened to it because I am learning Italian. And you spoke, yeah, positive about it, to use it as a tool to support your writing. Maybe you could tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, at the beginning I was very positive about the tool. With time I changed my mind a bit. I think
Okay.
you really have to understand how to use it because at the beginning it feels magical. It feels like, wow, this is incredible. But
Yeah.
with time you start to spot patterns and repetitions. And right now I'm using it in two ways. First, let's say that I found a very interesting topic. I want to write about that, and I ask ChatGPT for an outline for ideas. I already have some ideas, but sometimes it come up with very interesting ideas, so I can add them to my own ideas. And also, I mean, I'm not too concerned about the blank page syndrome. Like you have a blank page and you have to write, and a lot of people feel like trapped, feel like they can't do anything. This is not something that happens to me, but at the same time, it may happen. There are days where you don't find the right sentence to begin with, and asking ChatGPT to write the first sentence and then you start editing the sentence, everything becomes easier. Because while you're editing, you start to develop ideas and you start to, I don't know, think about the next sentence and then the next one and so on. So that's how I'm using ChatGPT right now. As a language learner, I'm using it to replace Italki, because right now the Italki community changed. In the past, it used to be more like a community helping each other. Right now, it's more about selling courses and buying hours with teachers. So it changed a lot actually. So right now I'm trying to use ChatGPT to simulate them. I write my daily note on ChatGPT and I'm asking it for feedback. And also I publish my, that's interesting. At the beginning I was like, this is not going to work. So I decided to publish my posts on ChatGPT and on italki, and I realized that I was receiving more or less the same feedback. So I was like, wow, this is like a compelling result. Yes. I mean, and so I decided to stick to ChatGPT and I'm trying to using it that way. And it's also easier because if you write something very bad or like you don't have to think, a lot of people are going to see it. No, it's only ChatGPT. So
yeah. And can you tell us a little bit more how you make the prompts on ChatGPT when you want to receive feedback? I mean, do you just copy paste your text and then what instructions do you give to ChatGPT?
Okay. This is actually an interesting topic because I'm still experimenting. I'm still trying to find the best prompt. But right now I write a short sentence in English like, please ChatGPT, consider that I'm a A2 in French. So my French might not be perfect because right now I'm learning French. And please provide me with feedback and with corrections. And then in the end, rewrite the entire text with the correction, and maybe you can add also some notes about style, about word choice. But I still have to find the right prompt, but I think that the prompt I'm using right now, which is pretty simple, basically I'm asking for feedback, corrections, and general feedback about style. I think it works pretty well.
Do you use the free version of ChatGPT? Or are you a member? Okay.
Right now I'm using the free version, and I'm also trying to use Bard, the Google version of ChatGPT, let's say, because I noticed that sometimes ChatGPT is not that useful. And so I switched to Bard because at the end of the day, they provide the same service. So, yeah.
So you are more happy with Bard then?
I mean, it depends because some. I don't know. When it comes to learning a language, I think that ChatGPT is a bit better. But in general, I'm trying to use more Bard, but because I think that sometimes it's way better than ChatGPT. But at the same time, it's not that easy because really sometimes you're pretty sure about your question and the answer is pretty like, I didn't ask for that, or like I asked you for corrections and you didn't provide me with that.
Yeah. So I wanted to add something because I am not used to write articles at all, but I remember that on a few articles that I have written in the past, I even paid someone, and it happens to be a teacher on italki, right? So instead of having a lesson, I paid the lesson fee, and the teacher would correct me. And it would actually be interesting to compare like the results that I received with ChatGPT or or Bart. Because, yeah, in my opinion, because it is free, it can add a lot of value. Because you can basically be an independent learner. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you are not allowed to search for help or to take lessons. But to me, it means I can receive feedback whenever I want, and that is
Yeah.
huge.
That's
Yeah.
impressive actually, and that's why I decided to try ChatGPT, because finding a wholesome community is not that easy. And there are a lot of apps, but sometimes, well, with time, they tend to become more commercial. They tend to, at the
Yeah.
beginning, it's all about the community, and then it's all about selling products, stuff, courses. And yeah, I mean, of course, it's part of the game, but at the same time, you are there to learn a language, to connect with other language learners. You're not there to just to spend your money, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking about apps, do you
Yeah.
have any tools maybe that you would recommend for English learners who are using writing to improve?
Yeah, I mean, as a non-native writer, I think that you have to look for ways to correct like tiny errors, small errors, and I think that Grammarly or the language tool plugin, they are very useful, because actually I use them both. So both Grammarly and the language tool, which
So
is pretty funny because sometimes,
sorry, the language tool, it's the name of the app.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
yeah, okay.
language tool or language tools. Actually, I don't remember right now. It's a Chrome plugin that you can install. Basically, it's just like Grammarly, but it supports also French, Italian, Spanish, like a lot of more languages. And I mean, it's funny because sometimes they have different ideas. They're telling you like, Grammarly is telling you like you have to add a comma, and the other tool is telling you no, you don't have to add the comma. But in most, yeah, but in most cases, I think that having them both is a value actually. And I think the language tools is very cool, because when you click on a word, it provides you with a lot of synonyms, which is very interesting, because sometimes you really want to find your sentence. And right now it also supports AI, so you can highlight a sentence and it provides you with different versions of the same sentence, the same meaning, but different versions. So that's
I
pretty
see.
pretty awesome. Actually, it's free, so it's pretty cool, I think. And yeah, and also a lot of writers I know that use Hemmingway, the Hemmingway app, which it's an online service. You write a text and it tells you the rating score. It tells you like you should, I mean, the sentences are too long, or you shouldn't use this word because it's too complex. I mean, yeah, it's useful if you want to write something very simple, but at the same time, I think it's a bit too strict. There are too many rules, and you feel like you're always doing something wrong.
I
And I
see.
know native writers, native speakers that are using it and feel the same way. So, I mean,
I see. I see. And what advice would you give to other English learners who are considering using writing as a method to improve their language skills? How could they start out? Should they focus on apps, on writing, or what advice could you give them?
yeah, I think at the beginning you have to use translators. It's not a problem. I don't think that it's a problem at all. Actually, using translating is very cool. You learn a lot of new stuff, new words. So at the beginning, you don't have to feel ashamed because you're using a translator. And but at the same time, at some point, you have to realize that you really have to try hard, and you really have to try to find a way to write yourself, because of course translators are good, but the point is not to train translators, the point is to train yourself. So at some point you really have to try, okay, let me try this, and maybe then you can compare with translator, with the ChatGPT, with any tool you want. But at the beginning I think you have to use translators, and when you write, you don't have to write complex stuff. You can write very short sentences, a lot of periods, a lot of like you can even repeat words. It doesn't matter. At the beginning, your goal is to learn how to convey a message in English, which is very important, I think. And then you can start to improve at this, add that word or try that expression. But at the beginning, you can play safe. You don't have to write the next Bible. You're like, it's not about that. I always say that you're not like Dante Alighieri. You're not writing the Divine Comedy. Yeah, keep it simple, whatever. And I think that it's very important to keep your audience in mind. Because when you're writing in English, your audience is likely to be non-native speakers, or at least not all of them. So that's also why you must consider writing very simply with a very simple style, because you want everyone to understand your writing. And when you are writing very long sentences or you feel like, yeah, this is pretty boring, okay, delete it, whatever. That's also useful. Keeping in mind the audience, the reader, I think that's pretty useful, especially at the beginning.
Yeah, I like that very much. Not overcomplicate things, and maybe just first build up a habit, right? Because, well, it happens to me that I have this idea to write articles or other ideas, and then I start out, and then it gets forgotten. I don't know. I have another idea, so it is important to stick to the plan, like you did.
Yeah.
And I noted down that you were writing articles for more than 1,484 hours, according to your website, but I don't know how up to date these numbers are.
Actually, they are pretty not up to date. I should update that, but I wrote so many hours, but I mean, that's like a rough number. I don't think it's pretty accurate, but yeah, I spent so many hours, but I don't think that you don't have to spend so many hours to become good at writing in English. I think that really it takes building an habit. That's what it's important. Doing it every day. Every day you have to find the time and the energy to do it, but it's not that difficult. You can write even like 50 words. I mean, I wrote so many notes on italki about the fact that I didn't know what to write about. My notes were about, I don't know what to write about today. And I was finding new ways to convey that message. So, because sometimes you don't have ideas. You don't have ideas at all. But you still want to write, and whatever, you can write about not being able to write.
Or maybe you can just copy other articles in the sense, for example, you are on Medium and you have some great articles and some great topics. Maybe one could also just take the title and write your own article because it will be from another perspective, I guess. So it's not that you are copying or stealing somebody's work.
Or actually, you can ask ChatGPT for ideas. You can say ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT like, I'm a blah, 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 I'm a software engineer, I'm a blah, 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 I know this and that, this is my level, give me some ideas.
Yeah, definitely. I did that also for TikTok, not TikTok, for YouTube short ideas and stuff, and it's brilliant. Yeah, it's like having a partner who is brainstorming with you. It gives you idea, but you don't have to take it. I am really curious. What do your friends or people say when they hear that you are a technical writer? What are some of the reactions?
Okay, first they think that it's a very boring job. But because, the word technical, the word writing, they're a bit scaring, But yeah, usually they don't understand because they think about papers, scientific papers. They think that I'm writing scientific papers, which is not the case, because when you think about technical stuff, you think about maybe scientific stuff or very complex stuff. They think that I'm writing handbooks about machines, I don't know, or explaining very complex algorithms, but that's not the case. I'm writing basically tutorials and in-depth guides about technology, about web development. And basically, when you stumble across a very important company, they usually have, but I mean, also small companies, they have a technical blog usually, where if we are talking about startups or like software development companies, they have a blog, and usually developers are very good at writing code, but they are not very good at writing.
Okay.
So I mean that's that's usually what happens. So it's very rare to find someone who's able to deal with both worlds, and that's why companies are more willing to pay for external writers to write good content on their blogs. And that's, I mean, I didn't know that. I started writing on Medium for passion. I didn't expect that. But with technical writing, you have to think about basically a developer writing stuff for a technical audience. But it's not like scientific, or it's
I
not
see.
about the future of the world. Like, no, it's not about that.
Hello guys, this is Daniel. This was the first part of 2 of the interview with Antonello Zanini. He is a great guy. I could learn a lot from him, and unfortunately he wrote an article on Medium in which he tells his followers that he's gonna leave Medium, which is the platform that he mentioned in the interview, but he's going to put his articles on another site, which you will find in the show notes, of course. So tune in later for the second part of this interview about how you can use writing to improve in your target language. Cheers!